Hello everyone, welcome back to the first video in a long time that isn't Sonic themed. Wow, I've made such an achievement. Today is going to be about the MCU. Today I'm going to be ranking every single one of these movies. They end right here, by the way. These are just shows and some other movies, Marvel movies, in a tier list, S being the best MCU movies and F being the worst of the MCU movies. This is probably going to be a long video, so I'd just like to jump into this very quickly. But before I do that, I want you guys to hit that like button and hit that subscribe button. And yeah, let's just jump in real quick, starting with the first Iron Man movie. It's not an E tier, don't worry. It's not an E tier. It's a good start to the MCU with this big amount of movies. And it doesn't have the highest amount of stakes because it's just trying to tell a simple story about a billionaire who is betrayed by someone, one of his colleagues. Oh yeah, spoiler alert for these movies. And the movie is pretty good. I'm gonna put it up in the B tier movies because because it is the first MCU movie, so we're gonna have a lot of movies that release with all the story and weight of the MCU, and so they're gonna be better. But it's just a simple movie. I probably wouldn't come back and rewatch it. Like that's probably my main problem. I don't think I would rather watch it. I think it's a good movie. I don't find it too entertaining, but I do think is a well-made, solid movie. Not the best in the MCU, but definitely a good one. Then the movie takes quite a big downturn with the Incredible Hulk. I'm going to put it in the E tier of movies. I don't think it's as bad as people make it out to be, because it does have some fun Hulk action. And I do actually think that Edward Norton is solid for Bruce Banner. I actually don't know which one is better, Edward Norton or Mark Ruffalo. I actually like them both pretty equally. That may be a hot take, but I'm just gonna have some hot takes. We all have our own hot takes. Anyways, the movie suffers because it was made by a different studio, Universal, where the first couple of MCU movies were made by Paramount before going to Disney. And it definitely feels different. It's obviously, like, some people say it's not an MCU movie. It is an MCU movie. It just feels different because of the casting, and most of the characters that appear in this movie don't really appear again. But I feel like the movie can be fun, but it just has some moments in there that just kind of bring it down for me. Like, the whole movie he's trying to remove the Hulk, and he does that, but then he comes back. How? I don't understand. That just was weird to me. The story itself just also kind of confused me. Like, he dropped blood in a drink that was sold to Stan Lee, by the way. All of it was just weird. And then, like, the government was trying to hunt Hulks and, like, use it for their own military use, and then there's, like, this soldier in the government that wants that power for himself, and it's super weird in my opinion. Next up, Iron Man 2. I actually am going to put this in E tier as well. I don't think it, once again, like the Incredible Hulk, I don't think it is as bad as people say it is. I definitely think it is entertaining enough, and there are some fun action sequences like Black Widow in the hallway fight. I do think it is entertaining enough, but it just not a good story. Like the villain Whiplash is an okay villain, and also Justin Hammer in this movie is very cool. And the scene where he's like talking with Rhodey about adding guns to his armor was very satisfying, and I love how the actor of Justin Hammer acted in that scene. It was very real, and it felt real. But the rest of the movie is just very boring, and it lacks action. And, like, when the first action scene actually does happen, it's very short and pretty bad. Like, it's the worst action scene in the whole movie. That being said, the rest of the action is pretty fun, which is why it's not an F tier. Once again, another E tier movie with Thor. I'm going to put it right there. I think this movie had a lot of potential, and it explored areas outside of Earth, which I thought was very interesting, but I thought the movie was just so boring. Like, it's not as boring as The Dark World, which we'll get to later, but it's just like, Like he goes to Earth, which is fine, and like the movie is supposed to be advertised as like exploring other worlds, but you're just on Earth, and like the interaction between Jane Foster and Thor isn't too bad, but I just was pretty bored by this movie. That being said, I think that Loki was pretty interesting in this movie. I think he dips down in the later movies and then comes back up after the Dark World, like at his very high points. I think that aspect of the movie was done well, but I think the rest of the movie was just super boring. The character of Heimdall was greatly improved. Even in Dark World, he was better than in this movie. But it's just it's still not a good movie. Captain America: The First Avenger. We're finally going outside A tier. I'm gonna put it in B tier as well. The other two Captain America movies are vastly superior. I feel this one had some great, and you know what? Actually, I'm gonna put it above Iron Man. I think this movie had some great action sequences with a very interesting villain, and I love how it tells Cap's origin story as well as the World War II aspect to it. Just this movie kind of feels overshadowed by the other two Captain America movies. I feel like if I want to watch a Captain America movie, I'm gonna pick those over this one. That being said, this movie isn't that bad. Like, I definitely feel like most of the characters were done well. I just feel like it doesn't do things as great as other MCU movies. Especially, it doesn't do things as good as the other two Captain America movies. Moving on to the Avengers. The Avengers is super overrated. I'm gonna put it at the top of B tier again. I think this movie is one of the most overrated movies. I think the story is very basic. Like, Loki is doing some bad. He's trying to conquer the world, so we must stop him. It's kind of that, and it's kind of like that for everyone. But I feel like Loki's plan is just so basic and boring. Like, he's trying to conquer the world by unleashing aliens onto the world, and it's fine, but it just feels super boring. Plus, the color, like the picture itself, was just so terrible to look at. It was way too colorful. It didn't feel dark and brooding. It felt way too campy, and like Captain America's suit is terrible. It's definitely his worst suit. Like, other movies are vastly superior to it, and I know that's probably not too bad, but also, when I say too bad, it also doesn't mean it kind of hurt. It doesn't really hurt the movie. Another thing is that the beginning scene is like so dark and it's hard to watch. Like, not like hard to watch like, I can't watch this. Hard to watch like, I can't see this. It's just very weird to me. The movie is fun to watch. It does its job, and I'm sure it was great at the time. But now we have other movies like Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, and yeah, I think it's overshadowed. We're going on to the F tier with Iron Man 3. The beginning of this movie had great potential. It's set up so great, and then the Mandarin twist happened, and then the rest of the movie just is ruined because of this. The Mandarin twist killed this movie for me. I'm pretty sure I've heard a lot of mixed opinions on it. Like, some people hate it as much as me. Some people think it's funny. Some people don't really care. But like, at least if you're gonna do that twist, then make the villain as good as he was in the beginning. But no, they made this Aldrich Killian guy the villain, and he's just so much worse. Like, he has scorn for Tony Stark because Tony Stark rejected him when he was a kid. It's like Syndrome from The Incredibles. It's talked to death at this point. I won't go further. Just Iron Man 3 was just ruined by the Mandarin twist. I did like the kid that was introduced, but this movie was just heavily ruined. Things don't get too much better with the Dark World. I think, at least with Iron Man 3, the beginning was pretty entertaining. With the Dark World, it's just not fun, bro. This movie is super. If you thought the first Thor movie was boring, this movie is just, this movie is just not it. Like, it's very mediocre and average. That goes to show how good the MCU is. Like, with probably the worst film on the list being mediocre and average, you're surprised that it would be in F tier. But Malakith is just so terrible as a villain. Like, He is so basic and boring, and his motivations are very unclear other than he wants the ether. Not only is it boring, but it's also confusing. Like, there was this whole teleport thing, like you would drop something and then it would teleport somewhere else. And they just completely dropped that. And was like, where did that go? And, like, they draw that for the rest of the MCU. It was just so weird. Probably a good thing about this was Loki. Like, he was good, but Loki can't save this movie. It was bland and mediocre. Alright, next up we have our first what the heck? This is going to be our first S tier movie. Captain America the Winter Soldier is beautiful. It's definitely one of the best solo films in the entire MCU. It's very entertaining to watch just on its own. Like, I feel like if this movie was released and it was just a solo film, it would be very good. Well, that paired with the first Avenger, which explains everything. But this movie had some fantastic action, an unbelievably great villain in the Winter Soldier, as well as Alexander Pierce. Some great interactions between Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers, and obviously the character dynamic between Steve and Bucky was just beautiful to watch. Like, the mystery and the action was just so fun. But it also tells a very interesting story. Like Bucky came back all these years ago, just like Steve, and he's brainwashed by Hydra, and Steve doesn't know that. So he goes to explore right after the movie is over. And, like, at the end, like, after they have the big fight, Captain America lets Bucky win. And so he falls into the water, and Bucky saves him because he's able to overcome that Hydra programming for just a split second. He doesn't go back until, like, Civil War, but we'll get to that later. Next up, we have an overrated film. An overrated film, I say. I know I'm probably going to get, like, so much flack, but I'm going to put this right there. Top of B tier. I know a lot of people would say this is top 5 MCU movie. I don't know if I'm there yet. Like, it's good. I think it's definitely funny. And I do like how they took a risk with all these characters, and the action is pretty fun. Plus, the dynamic between Yondu and Peter Quill was very heartfelt. It's more heartfelt in the second movie, but what I mean by that is, like, it's fun to watch, but it was more explored and heartfelt in the second movie. The villain is kind of boring with Ronan, but, I mean, like, he was okay. He wasn't terrible. I didn't hate him. But there are definitely better villains in the MCU. The interactions between all the main heroes are very cool. Plus, Drax is hilarious. And this movie was just funny, but I feel like it's just too much like Star Wars. Which kind of weirds me out. And I know, like, they do Star Wars, but when this movie happens, it feels like it loses a little bit of Marvel. I still see the Marvel in it, but I feel like other movies that also feel like Star Wars kind of keep the pure Marvel. Maybe because the character selection is weird and, like, off. Not saying I hate the characters, because I love all the characters. I think the second movie is better, though. Next up, we have a very underrated movie in the MCU, Age of Ultron. And this, I'm going to argue S tier, but I'm going to put it in A tier. I think this movie is so underrated. Like, the picture quality is such an improvement. Like, it's way more darker and gray. You still see the color, but you see the grayness and the grittiness to it. Unlike in the first movie, it's just a pure rainbow. In this movie, it's, like, amazing. It's probably one of my top 3 favorite picture qualities of any movie. I know picture doesn't really make the movie, but when a good movie has good picture, it makes a good movie even better. The action is like, super fun to watch, especially that Hulk versus Hulkbuster fight. And it's super, super entertaining. I love it. I love Ultron. He's very interesting as a villain, and kind of has an interesting plan going for him. Like, one thing I do have a problem with, why not going in S tier, is Quicksilver. I don't have a problem with Quicksilver. I think they killed him off way too soon. Not only that, but they kill him off in a terrible way, which brings it down from S tier. If they kept him or killed him off in a more believable way, then I would have had it in S tier. But it's very fun to watch. The story is also interesting. I know it's very confusing, but if you listen, the story is amazing. Also, I know I've heard a lot of people have problem with how Ultron gets around, but I know because like his consciousness is actually in the internet, kind of. It's kind of like that. It's more like in the mainframe, like in the tech world, and that's how he gets around super quickly. Quicksilver's death, I feel like they should have killed him off in a way where like Ultron kills him, like Ultron detects him, grabs him, and then like chokes him to death. That may have been too dark for MCU standards, but I just feel like Quicksilver's death was kind of rushed, and just like they kill him off by a flurry of bullets shot by Ultron in a Quinjet. And that was pretty lame. I feel like in the X-Men universe, he was able to just grab the bullets and then move them, which is what he could have done to save Hawkeye. And yeah, this movie was fun, and I loved this movie, which is why it's gonna be an A tier. But Quicksilver's death was why it keeps it down from being an S tier. Okay, moving on. We have Ant-Man. I don't really care for this movie. It's gonna get a C tier ranking. It's good. It's funny when it needs to be, but I feel like the sequel is just vastly superior. And I know I'm basing my opinions comparing each of the movies, but just hear me out. The villain is not good. It's not the best villain in the MCU, that's for sure. The humor was definitely made better in the second movie. Like some of the characterizations are funny, but I feel like I don't know what to make of this movie. This movie is just kind of in that pile of MCU movies where I kind of don't really care about them. I kind of have zero feelings for them, which is why it's getting like in the middle, a C tier ranking, not really S tier. So yeah, it's C tier movie because I don't really care about it. Oh, next movie, Civil War. This is going to be our second S tier movie, better than Winter Soldier, because like the story is unbelievably so good. It's so thoughtful. Like Captain America, he loses trust in the U.S. government, and so he becomes a fugitive because the U.S. government is trying to like control the Avengers because they believe that they are uncontrollable, and if they are not controlled quick enough, then they will cause more casualties than they face. Another thing is that the action is probably like some of the top 3 best action in the entire MCU. Is so good. This movie is just like pure intensity. This movie is so intense. It feels like an MCU movie. Like, I love the Captain America franchise after First Avenger. First Avenger was good, but these 2 movies are just beautiful. Like, I've heard a lot of people say Captain America is overshadowed by the other Avengers, but I can definitely see that Captain America is the main character, not Tony Stark, not Spider-Man, not Bucky. I can definitely see that Captain America is the main character. Speaking of Bucky, his character development throughout the movie is amazing, and then the final battle feels so earned. It's entertaining. It's heartfelt. You see all the emotion packed into it. You see Tony Stark struggle as he struggles, like with processing his parents' death. He processes all of this. He just unleashes his fury onto Captain America and Bucky. It's beautiful. Oh, this movie is amazing. S tier. But it's not my favorite movie in the MCU. Another one that I don't really care about, Doctor Strange. I don't think it's as good as Ant-Man because I feel like Ant-Man and Doctor Strange, like, I don't care for either of these movies. Like, I don't feel anything bad about them, but I don't feel anything good about them. At least Ant-Man has funny moments. This movie is kind of just like, it doesn't have any funny moments. The spectacle and like the CGI, what they're able to do with all this CGI is very cool to look at, but I cared about 0 of these characters in this movie. Like, I couldn't remember any of them. Like, I remember the Ancient One, I remember Doctor Strange, obviously. I remember Wong, but he's done way better in other movies. I remember Dormammu. Like, the ending with Dormammu was kind of like, it was funny, and I get like he defeated Dormammu by boring him and annoying him, but it feels anticlimactic, I guess. I just don't care. I don't have anything to say about this. It's just a movie that has cool CGI, and that's it. Next one. Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy V2. This movie is going to get a solid A tier. I think this movie is fun, and I do love all the funny moments, and it's very colorful, it's rich, and it feels very cool. Better, an improvement over the first one, and the villain is very cool. I love all the Rocket and Yondu scenes in the ship, as well as when jumping through, and Yondu's death is super sad. It was probably one of the saddest deaths in the MCU. Like, you could definitely see Peter Quill's emotion as he says goodbye to his daddy, not his father, his daddy. And like, it was very interesting to see Peter Quill become a god, and I would have had a problem with it if he kept his power, but he lost it, which made it better for me, in my opinion. And I love his line that he gives to his dad when he says, if you defeat me, you'll be just like everyone else. And then Peter's like, what's so wrong with that? Oh, it feels so good. Like, Taserface is also very entertaining. I felt myself rewatching this movie way more than I did the first movie. Let's move on. We have the first Spider-Man movie. This movie is going to get the bottom of S tier. Spider-Man Homecoming is a very cool. Is very cool movie. It has great action sequences, and Vulture is one of the best villains in the MCU, in my opinion. Let's see. And I love Spider-Man's new suit that was introduced in Civil War with Tony Stark, and I love the twist where the Vulture ends up being Spider-Man's crush's dad. Like, that caught me off guard like crazy. I saw that coming not at all. Like, it caught me off guard right in the theater. Plus, the boat sequence is like super cool. I know a lot of people have the problem like with Tony Stark kind of overshadowing Spider-Man. I don't think he overshadowed him too much. I think he had 2, maybe 3 scenes where he did kind of, but other than that, it was fine. It was fine to me. I didn't mind Tony Stark, and plus it made Spider-Man Far From Home, when he lost Tony Stark, it made that all the more richer and all the more heartfelt, in my opinion. Like that, like, you could definitely see the interaction with them. You can definitely see how Tony Stark does care for him, especially in Endgame, and it makes his loss in Endgame and his dealt with the loss in Far From Home all the more better. Let's move on. Let's see. Yes, Thor Ragnarok. All right. If you thought Thor Dark World and the original Thor were boring, this movie gets an F tier. No, I'm joking. This movie gets a very solid, very prestigious A tier. Right there in the middle of the Age of Ultron and Volume 2. It is such an improvement from the first two. It has life. It has color. It has humor. Taika Waititi injected life and color into this series. Like if you like Thor: The Dark World, it was such a great movie, and then you just watch this movie and you think, is this even the same movie franchise? They also improved Thor, making him much more funny. They proved him emotionally and physically. Like, his haircut in this movie is super cool. By far, he looks his best in this movie. Also, with the red paint across his eyes, it looks amazing. I actually kind of like it better when he didn't have the black eye, but that's fine. That's a minor gripe. Plus, the villain Hela is okay. Like, she was evil for evil's sake. Once again, it was a pretty basic villain, but she was decently entertaining when she was on screen. And I feel like the tone was very consistent, unlike another Thor movie we'll get to later. It was funny, but when it needed to be gritty, it didn't go so far down gritty that it felt like, oh my gosh, what the heck? What is this? Like, it feels natural. And like the humor is not so over the top, cheesy, campy, but it it is still very funny. Like Jeff Goldblum is also in the movie. That was pretty good. I'll be honest. At first, I didn't like it, but as time grew on, he grew on me definitely. This movie is very good. I like it. Next up, we have Black Panther. Okay, this movie also gets an A tier, right above Thor Ragnarok. I think that Black Panther is probably my most rewatched MCU movie. Like, I probably watched it the most amount of times because I love to just pop it in, watch the maturity, but also the added in humor in it. And I love all the great action sequences. I know, like, in the third act, the CGI is absolute trash, but I don't really care. I still love watching that action scene. And it's still fun to watch, in my opinion. Yes, the CGI is trash, but it doesn't really ruin the movie for me. Killmonger is an outstanding, beautiful, amazing villain, in my opinion. Like, he's probably maybe a top 2 for me. Maybe a top 2. He's fun to watch. He has a great backstory. His ambition is crazy. His goals are out of this world. Like, he has so much put into him, and he still feels natural. It's just beautiful. T'Challa is great as the lead. Also, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman. Shuri is a great side character. I feel like all the characters in this movie were very cool. All the action and music was amazing. The camera angles were done very well. So, like, this movie rocks. The only reason why it's not an S tier is because, yes, I do get it. Some of the CGI is pretty bad in the third act, so I'm gonna keep it from S tier just for that. Now, big movie. Here we go. Oh, yep. Avengers Infinity War, top of S tier. This is like a top 5 movie of all time for me, bro. This movie is amazing. It's got action. It's got emotion. It's got crazy drama. It's got everything just crammed into this movie. Everything except for Ant-Man and Hawkeye. But that's fine, as they are added back into Endgame. Like, this movie just had every single possible character other than those two just put into this movie for this ambitious, crazy movie. Oops. I don't know who that was. This movie was crazy. It had Spider-Man in it with his awesome new metal Iron Spider suit. It had Iron Man in it with his sleek nanotech. Like, the battle on Titan was a very sick scene. The Battle of Wakanda was had amazing action. The CGI in this movie was beautiful. Thanos, probably right up there with Killmonger in my top 2. It was a beautiful movie, epic, so much. Of course, also we gotta include the snap where he wipes out half of all of life in the universe. This movie had everything you could possibly imagine, except for Ant-Man and Hawkeye, right into it, and it did its job beautifully. Let's move on. Alright, then we have Ant-Man, from probably the biggest movie to the smallest, to probably the smallest movie. Oh, it's frozen. Okay, this movie is, I'm gonna give it the top of B tier. Above all those previous movies, I know it's crazy. It has very small stakes, unlike Infinity War, which had super high stakes. But I feel like Ant-Man and the Wasp was natural. The post-credit scene at the end was just like, it gives me chills every time I watch it. It's crazy. It is probably the funniest movie in the MCU, in my opinion. It has a pretty good villain, not the best, but definitely not one of the worst. She had emotion. She had an objective other than kill everyone or rule over everyone. She just wanted to cure herself, and she needed to do evil things to get that cure. Plus, the emotions in this movie were beautiful. Once again, the humor was hilarious movie. Like, I've probably never laughed in a movie. What the heck? Oh, gosh. Okay, I probably never laughed in a movie more, or MCU movie more. I've definitely laughed in other movies more, but this movie was hilarious. It was definitely fun to watch, but I'd still think I'd rather, like... Yeah, I think I'd rather watch these movies than that, but it's still very good. Oh, Captain Marvel. I don't care for this movie at all. D tier. I really don't care. Like, unlike Ant-Man, Ant-Man was funny. Doctor Strange had cool CGI. Captain Marvel has nothing, in my opinion. Like, seriously, I was kind of hyped for this movie, but like, Captain Marvel herself is very bland. The villain was terrible, like boring. It was such a movie that I just didn't care about. We had so many highs before this, and then this movie came out and just kind of stopped everything. It was just... It was a movie with a super powerful hero. It was just a movie. That's it. I have zero emotions for this. Yeah, but... Don't worry, the lows are not for long, as we have Avengers Endgame. Let's put that in the top of S tier. This is not only my favorite MCU movie of all time, but it is my favorite movie, period. Yes, this is my favorite movie of all time. The action and the ending is crazy. When Cap lifts the Mjolnir from the ground, it gave me so much chills up my spine. It was just like, oh my gosh, that he means business now. Thanos once again brought back twice, kind of. Beautiful movie with CGI that is just gorgeous. Some of the bringbacks, like when Spider-Man swinged his way through the portal, and the whole audience cheered. When I was in the theater, the whole audience was just cheering everywhere. It was crazy. And then, like, when he reunited with Tony Stark, like, Spider-Man had no idea what was coming. And then he finally earned that hug that he missed from Homecoming. And it was just brought back into this movie. And it was so beautiful. Like, Thanos is brought back. He dies in this movie twice. And then we have, of course, we have Black Widow's death and Iron Man's death. It's like... So much emotion was packed into it, so much thought, so much care. Just, this movie is just beautiful. I love it. It deserves its S tier. If any movie on this tier list deserves to be called S tier, it is Avengers Endgame. But we are not done yet. We still have the last movie of Phase 3 as well as Phase 4. Next up, we have Spider-Man Far From Home. Like Homecoming, this movie was great. Unlike Homecoming, I think it was better. Wait, what? Unlike Homecoming, what? Who says that? This movie was better than Homecoming, as well as Winter Soldier. I'm putting in S tier. You're already at a low when you have to make a movie after something like Thanos' snap, like after Endgame. But they pulled it off greatly. Like, Spider-Man is just as cool, is just as funny. Plus, his black and red suit is one of his best ones. Plus, the emotions in this movie were great. And as well as the Mysterio twist. I feel like it's the Mandarin twist, but done better. Like, he actually feels like a very threatening villain. And I know the plotline where Peter gets Stark's glasses when it should have been given to someone like Rhodes. I didn't really mind that. I found it to be not, like, retracting from the movie. I loved Mysterio as the villain. Jake Gyllenhaal plays him super beautifully. Plus, all the callbacks to the first Iron Man movie felt great. Spider-Man dealing with Tony Stark's death after Endgame was done perfectly. Plus, we have the additional romance between Peter Parker and Mary Michelle Jones Watson, I guess is her name, not Mary Jane Watson. Is done beautifully. and done greatly in this movie. Plus, Nick Fury's addition is also amazing. And yeah, the movie was good. I liked it. Let's move on to Phase 4 with Black Widow. Okay, a lot of people don't like Black Widow, and I think that I actually kind of did like it, but I think it's either bottom of A tier or top of B tier. This is tough. I'm bottom of A tier. I love the action. I felt like it had a lot of similarities to Winter Soldier, but like what this movie did with Black Widow's character after her death felt great. I know some parts the CGI are bad. Like, I loved the reveal of the Red Room in the sky. It was good. I loved it. I loved the character of, like, Alexios was his name, I'm pretty sure. That Russian guy with the suit who kind of looks like Captain America with the full beard. The movie was just very entertaining. I love the interaction between Black Widow and her sister. Also, can I just say that the villain is like so overlooked. Like, everyone talks about how Taskmaster was a very big disappointment, but I feel like the replacement villain was great as well. He was entertaining. He had like super threatening vibes to him. Like, I definitely felt how threatening, how evil he was. Like, it was just plus, like, Black Widow's recovery from her supposedly killing the villain's daughter. I don't remember the villain's name though. The villain's daughter. It was done pretty good. I liked it. The reason why it's in A tier is because I don't really connect with Black Widow as much as I do like Black Panther, Thor, or Spider-Man. So it's not as good. But still good because of A tier. Oh, then we have Shang-Chi. Now, this movie, I wasn't too excited for this movie. I thought it looked fun. It's not C tier, don't worry. I thought it looked fun, but it totally won me over. I'm going to put it right there in A tier. The action, like the bus sequence, was super cool. I loved all the action sequences in this movie. The villain was super interesting. The ending was like super cool. I love the character of like Shang-Chi's friend. I don't remember her name. What was her? She was very funny. I loved her family. They were also pretty funny. And he was done very good. And I felt like I connected him even more than like characters that we've been introduced a long time ago. Like, I felt way more connected to him than Black Widow. And even, I don't know, like Hawkeye. I felt way more connected to him than Hawkeye. And I loved all the backstory that was given at the beginning of the movie. It was all done very good. The villain was great. The plot was great. And I have mixed of feelings about them bringing back the fake Mandarin actor, kind of. I don't know how I think about that, but it doesn't detract from the movie at all. It gets a solid A tier placement. And then from that, we have Eternals. I don't care for this movie once again. I think it is better than Captain Marvel, so I'm gonna give it there a D tier. I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think it's like amazing. Like, it had so many characters, so many plots. So it felt like it had 10 movies, and they tried to cram all those movies into one. And it was just like it had like, oh my, I don't remember even half of the characters' names. Like, this movie is very forgettable, but I feel like it was definitely an interesting premise. I didn't hate this movie while watching it. It just felt like it had too much going on. And it was way too confusing because there were way too many characters and way too many plot points. Like, the only characters I remember were Sprite, Cersei, Icarus, and Ajax. And when I heard that Ajax died, I didn't really feel anything because, like, she was only in the movie for what, like 2 minutes? Like, I didn't really feel anything. It was just, oh shoot, she died, dang. And I just kind of glossed over it. I didn't really care for it, but it's better than Captain Marvel because I feel like I did connect with Icarus a little bit, like not too much. Like the kid in the movie said, he did feel like Superman, like he was way too overpowered and just unstoppable beast of a person, kind of like Captain Marvel. And just like the movie was good, but nothing beyond that. It was just good. It was just good. And then we have in my opinion, the last super movie of the MCU, like super amazingly good movie. I'm gonna put it as a top 3 in the MCU. It like as you can probably see, I love the Spider-Man franchise, and Spider-Man No Way Home felt earned. I never really loved Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield's like movies. I didn't really love them. I did like Spider-Man 2 and the first Amazing Spider-Man movie. But the other ones were okay, and I did not like Spider-Man 3 at all. But when they appeared, I felt like they were even better in this movie than they were in their own movies. Maybe Andrew Garfield, maybe he was better in his own, but when Andrew Garfield got his own conclusion, it felt earned. Like, there was so much Spider-Man fan service. There was, like, one thing I did get disappointed was there wasn't really Venom until the post-credit scene, which was good. And it's set for Spider-Man 4, which I'm very excited about, and I hope happens, and I'm pretty sure it is going to happen. Plus the introduction of Doc Ock and Green Goblin, and also the multiverse. It added the multiverse into the MCU, which was very interesting, and set up for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which we'll get to right after this. The action was beautiful, and it wasn't just Spider-Man fan service. It also gives Tom Holland's Peter Parker a connectable story to him, and he had a good story, and like with his aunt dying and him losing everyone, not really losing them, but like losing their ability to remember him, and all of that was just so heartfelt, so emotional, so it was a good movie. I really liked it, and I wouldn't change a thing about it. Plus the ending was just beautiful. Also funny thing, like Spider-Man and Wanda kind of had the same things happening to them, but they handled them completely differently. Next up, DC. DS, I mean. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. This movie was vastly superior from the first Doctor Strange movie. It was way more interesting. I'm going to give it the bottom of A tier. Yes, I'm putting it below Black Widow, because I feel like with that movie, the action was better. But with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it still had some good action, plus a lot of cameos. But like, I feel like a lot of modern movies are just hell-bent on cramming cameos into their movies. And honestly, I kind of expected more. Like, we got Captain Carter, Professor X. Oops. I dropped my phone, sorry. Wait, what happened? Oops, I moved. Wait, what? Give me a minute. Okay, sorry about that. I got it fixed. I don't know what that was about. But I did expect a bit more cameos in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We did get Black Bolt as well. Who else did we get? Who else? Oh, yeah. Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four. We got another version of Captain Marvel. And the Doctor Strange villain, what was his name? I don't remember his name. Whatever. It was very interesting to see all the different versions of Doctor Strange, like Defender Strange, Supreme Strange, Sinister Strange. And then we got America Chavez thrown in there, plus Scarlet Witch is the villain. And also, like, there was some very scary moments in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Like, it was good. I loved it. There were a couple of horror elements. Honestly, a fun fact, my dad and I went to see this movie, and he ended up liking it a lot less than he thought he would, and I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I would. It gets A tier. It's a very cool movie. I do think there are some hiccups along the way, but they're nothing more than just hiccups. And the story was very interesting, and Doctor Strange was made a great, like, an amazing character in this movie. He was amazing in other movies, but beyond the point, whatever. Oh yeah, I'm not going to rank any of the shows because I haven't really seen them all. So, yeah. The last is going to be Thor Love and Thunder. I'm going to put this movie in C tier, but above Doctor Strange. This movie, And I have Ant-Man and Doctor Strange in here because I didn't really feel anything when watching these movies. When watching Thor Love and Thunder, I felt everything. Like, seriously, this movie was just everywhere. This movie was just bonkers. It was so... It was, like, funny at times. It was dark. It was emotional. It was just everything. Like, if you thought Everything Everywhere All at Once should have been called that, no. This was Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, this movie was just all over the place. The villain Gore was good. I liked him. I liked how Christian Bale played him. Like, I definitely felt like the actors gave 110% while watching this movie. And, it was super funny watching Thor treat his weapons like pets. It was very weird. But, like, the tone of this, like, in Thor Ragnarok, at least the tone felt consistent. In this movie, the tone was just everywhere. Like, the movie switches from Thor treating his weapons as pets to making you think children died, to, like, Jane Foster getting Thor's hammer and, like, kind of getting back with Thor, and then Thor treating his weapons like pets again, and then we cut to, like, Gore ripping the head of a snake in front of children. Like, this movie the movie starts with a child actually dying, and then she comes back to life at the end of the movie, and then Gore dies at the end of the movie. It was, like, this movie was just everything. This movie was just so weird to me. Like, it was fun, and I would watch it again because it was fun. But, like, it was everything, man. It was everything, everywhere, all at once. Which isn't a bad thing. I loved how this movie was just everywhere, but I also didn't like it because the tone was just so this is probably one of the least consistent tones in a movie I have ever seen. Like, if you thought the third Thor movie was wacky, this movie just cranks it up. But, like, I feel like the story suffers because, like, I feel like Taika Waititi focused too much on the wackiness and not enough on the story. But it was fine, I guess. Weird because I have it in C tier for wildly different reasons that I have Ant-Man and Doctor Strange, because in those movies I didn't like the villain. In Thor Love and Thunder I did like the villain. In those movies I didn't feel anything. In Thor Love and Thunder I felt everything, and it was just super weird. The movie was every bit as wacky but also crazily dark, and this movie just, like, wow. Sometimes it just hammers on you, and then sometimes it just, like, lets you fly freely. What? But yeah, that is my tier list. Let me know what you think of my opinions on the MCU movies. Let me know if you want me to rank the TV shows, and I will gladly do that. And I will see you in the next video. Peace out.